Welcome to 𝗂𝗏𝘁 Spotlight. I'm your host, Susan Choi. Each week, we feature a special guest to provide insights on a relevant topic in the food and beverage industry. Today, we'll be focusing on dining trends, who's eating out, who's staying in and cooking, and what consumers really want these days. To get the real scoop on all this, I would like to welcome David Portalatin, Senior Vice President and Food Industry Advisor of Circana. David, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
It is a pleasure having you here. Let's get started. Top line question. We're talking eating behavior, eating patterns. Based on the country's overall view of the economy, it's been pretty shaky lately. What are we going to be seeing in the days ahead? What are we seeing right now? Are people going to be just simply eating less food? Tell us your thoughts, David.
Well, I don't have any evidence that consumers are eating less food. What we are doing is we're changing the what we eat, where we source foods in home and away from home. And food inflation really continues to be the story of the day. Now, I think what we're going to see in 2024 is this balance of in-home versus away from home has sort of stabilized quite a bit. We're tracking, Susan, about $1.6 trillion in food and beverage spending, both in-home and away from home. And our share of spending shows that consumers are spending about 60% of their food dollar at grocery retail and other retail stores, and about 40% at food service outlets. And that's likely to remain fairly stable, although as disinflation is a little more aggressive on the retail store than it is at the restaurant, you might see our share of spending shift a little bit more to away from home in 2024, but our share of actual consumption occasions is likely to be really stable. So sometimes we like to talk about that just in terms of the actual foods and beverages we consume. And it remains true that 86% of everything we eat or drink was an item purchased at a retail store, whether it's a grocery store, club store, convenience store, drugstore, whatever it may be. That means about 14% came from a food service establishment, whether that's a commercial restaurant or a healthcare facility or a school cafeteria or whatever that may be. And that relationship is actually likely to be pretty stable as we go throughout the year. What that means for food and beverage marketers is that there will be opportunities to grow both at retail and at food service as we become relevant to what consumer specific needs are.
Let's go into the food at home category. We know that cooking at home surged because of the pandemic. Then we saw somewhat of a cooling off phase. But what are we seeing now, David, from where you stand? And in terms of needs and desires, has there been an evolution there? Tell us your thoughts.
You described it well. We stretched, we grew, we learned new things during the pandemic. We created more capacity to prepare foods and beverages at home. Our cooking skills became more advanced, and we're not ever going to fully abandon that. So it's true that still today, we're preparing more foods and beverages at home than we used to. Now, the problem is we've returned to much of our old rhythms of life. Maybe we're not going to the office every day, but we're going 3 days a week now. And so as mobility has returned, the demands on our time have become more intense. And so what consumers really need for in-home meal preparation above all else now is convenience. Help me continue to do the things that I'm doing at home, but I need to do them faster. I need to do them easier. If there are things you can take off of my to-do list, whether that's in the shopping, the preparation, or the cleanup, whatever it may be, help me do that. If there are appliances like an air fryer or a toaster oven or something like that that helps me do something quicker, consumers are really embracing those kinds of things. And then one other element to that, while we have gotten into this habit of preparing more foods at home, and we want to keep doing that, we still want to explore and have new experiences. And so we're seeing things like global flavors becoming more important at home. So as food marketers think about how they can assist consumers, help me do something quickly, help me execute it at a high level with what may be a limited skill set, and help me explore some new flavors or put a new twist on some of my familiar favorites. That's a pretty good summary of what we're seeing happen at home right now.
Let's talk about the food away from home category. Let's get back to that, David. You did mention that you thought we were going to be seeing a shift towards food away from home in this category. Could you share more thoughts about this, especially given that, we're not really going to be seeing menu prices come down that much anytime soon due to, continued rising costs right on the back end of raw materials and ingredients for food service and for, retail establishments. Yeah, give us your take on this.
Food service operators have a very acute exposure to increased labor costs. And that's one of the big things that's keeping menu prices rising faster than grocery prices on average. And so one of the effects of that is we look at the average cost of any given eating occasion sourced away from home versus in-home. And that gap is now more than $6 per occasion, more expensive when we go outside the home. And that gap versus in-home is getting wider and wider and wider. And so this means that consumers, when they do choose to go away from home, they're going to be pretty value conscious. Now, value conscious doesn't always mean I need the least expensive solution. For a lot of consumers, what it means is that when we do invest in that premium price to go away from home, we want to be really satisfied. So we may be looking at those more indulgent or craveable items where taste is the real differentiator, those things that I can't make for myself at home. Or in the case of a full service restaurant where I get that differentiated experience and really great service. And those are ways that food service operators will be able to win in 2024. And I just want to be clear, I think you will see share of dollars spent shift slightly to the away from home side of the equation. I don't think that means we're going to see a share of our consumption occasions shift away from home. I think that'll be pretty stable, but it's the relative pricing with restaurants being increasingly more efficient or more expensive relative to retail that's going to drive that dollar shift. It also means that restaurant operators will focus in on value and create perceptions of value, which again, doesn't necessarily mean the lowest priced items. It means leveraging our loyalty programs, delivering deals and promotions and offers through our digital app to create perceptions of deal on the part of consumers. And you'll see a lot of restaurant operators who are winning in the marketplace are the ones who are doing better on those tacks.
All right, great to hear all these trends that characterize how we're eating in America. David Portalatin, Senior VP and Food Industry Advisor at Circana. David, thanks again for joining us today.
Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
And as always, you can check out all the great content that we've done by clicking on this playlist. Till next time, I'm Susan Choi. Take care and have a great weekend.